about my inheritance? Oh, between siblings, so much can happen. And when parents pass away without a clear will or a legal plan, what's left behind more often than not is grief on one hand and a battlefield in the other. So many South African black families and the family home connect to each other as a symbol of legacy, security, and ancestral pride. But when that property is inherited without proper documentation or agreement, chaos may follow. Siblings may disagree on who lives in the house, who controls the keys, whether it could be rented, must it be sold, must it pass. All the while, childhood resentment, entitlement, and unspoken family dynamics start to bubble to the surface. So today we ask, what are the most common fights that erupt after a death in the family, and who really has the legal right to make a decision about a family home? I'm assuming this is without a will. And can one sibling rent without the other's consent? Can one sibling do anything to the home without the other's consent? So let's get into it. You can call in on 0861987000. Lelo N. Waka Gatsheni is on the line with us, founder of Lelo & Co Real Estate and Consulting. Lelo, lovely to have you back with us.
How are you doing, Pabi? Thank you so much for having me back.
Good. And then we have Phatheka, Premrose Maliphale, who is the director of Pabi Moloi Inc. Attorneys. Lovely to talk to you as well.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much for having me. Hello, Lelo.
How are you doing?
So this is something that's so common. It's even in soap operas, man. It's something that I don't know if we have not caught on to writing our wills out, or if we just think that our children will get along once we're gone. What is going on? I mean, Lelo, when a parent dies and leaves the home with multiple children, what is the most common real estate mistake that families make?
Well, they do nothing about it. That's the most common mistake. There's even a show now called Gugitila. It's chaotic. People don't report the death. They don't go to the master's office. They don't do the transfer of the title. Some of them don't even know they're supposed to do that. I mean, they just assume it's our home, but legally that home is stuck in the name of the deceased until someone formalizes the process. So, I mean, in communities like Tembisa, I've seen homes left untouched for 15 years, they say, and then suddenly someone wants to sell or rent, and then boom, chaos. So heirs start arguing, documentation doesn't even exist, and now the family is dealing with a legal headache they should have avoided in the first 90 days.
Are you saying in the first 90 days?
Yes, in the first 90 days, they should actually report the death. They should go to the master's office. They should report it to the municipality, because even the municipality still bills the deceased as if they're still alive, because no one reported the death.
Ooh-wee. So, Primrose, I mean, in those 90 days, what should be happening when someone dies without a will? And now we've heard 90 days, but without a will, is it different? With a will, is that different?
The requirement to report the estate is not different. I think my colleague is correct to say that most importantly is, actually not most importantly, what creates all of this battlefield is the fact that people do nothing, and they just leave everything to the hands of whoever, and then whoever doesn't have maybe even funds to report the estate. But then again, they don't even go and get information on how to report the estates, because again, there are a number of organizations that are there to assist those who are unable to afford to pay their attorney's fees in order to report the estate, or even to obtain the information.
And it can be very, very difficult then when the siblings start holding different ideas about what should be done. So from your experience, Lelo, what happens, for example, when a sibling who's generally quite business savvy starts renting out the family home without any legal documentation or agreement?
It's one of the biggest triggers, Pabi. And it's the biggest trigger of family disputes because there's money involved. So now one person is collecting money they're making the decisions, and then the rest feel excluded. And legally, the rental is invalid. So what they often do without a letter of authority, or they claim they took care of the property. You know, I've had situations where someone said, but I built a wall, I put in aluminium windows. So they feel like they deserve the income. But even if you lived there, if the house is still in your late parents' name and no estate process has been started, that income can be challenged. So I've seen a case where rent was collected for 2 years, and then the house was eventually sold, and then the other heirs demanded back payment. So the deal almost, falls through. In some cases, it needs to be reversed because there's no structure that was put in place from the beginning.
So what? The rental must be reversed, meaning whoever was earning that rental must pay it back?
Yes, it's invalid. It does not belong to them legally.
Pay it back to whom?
To the other heirs. So, because the rental should be divided, because there's no letter of authority. The other heirs did not give permission for the rental to be collected. Even if you say, because most of the time what happens is, I've dealt with a lot of issues like this, where the one sibling says, but I took care of mom, in a case where mom passed away or a dad passed away, so I deserve this, I deserve that. But what they fail to realize is the law doesn't care who took care of who. It's all about paperwork.
I mean, that is some tough stuff, because I know when it comes to siblings, there will always be the one who took care of mom and dad, maybe the two if you're lucky, but then there'll be the drunk uncle, and then he must also get exactly the same amount as the people who were looking after the house. The house falls to absolute lawlessness and nonsense, and now whose responsibility is to fix it? So really, this is for our parents, not our parents, maybe our parents' parents, to really have a conversation about their inheritance and property rights, because their children are in their 70s.
Exactly, yes.
Phew. It makes me really nervous because, one sibling may do something out of pocket before the estate is wound out. So Phatheka, what should we look out for?
The most important thing I always try is to quickly get informed. You get legal advice, because what happens in most of these cases, like my colleague has mentioned, is that a lot of siblings who are having this entitlement in terms of claiming whatever it is that they've done in the house for the parents, it comes from obviously lack of information, because of the fact that they are of the opinion that you are going to get a bigger share than the other siblings because of your contribution of each, because there is no will in place. There isn't anything that you can say, okay, this is my agreement with my mom, but where is it written? So it's not written anywhere, and it's difficult then to provide some form of evidence in order to protect your contribution. So that's where all of this battlefield comes in, because of those misconceptions and also the lack of information. Because often it happens that when people know that there is no will, then they think that, I'm the uncle, I'm supposed to take care of everyone, and forget that the law has got a formula where the distribution of the estate needs to be followed in terms of who is the spouse, who are the children, who are the parents, and who are the siblings. And the uncle is not even part of that. And if it happens that the uncle takes some funds, or maybe even collect the rental amount, then it means that uncle is obviously doing a criminal act, because of the fact that money does not belong to him. It belongs to the estate, and also in the estate it needs to be distributed equally amongst everyone with an heir.
This has got to be done, because Phatheka and yourself, Lelo, I'm sure you've heard people say, but I'm the firstborn, so actually this house is mine. But what does the law say? The law of South Africa, not the law of the culture you're making up at the time.
It's very sensitive, Pabi, but it's very common. And usually the person staying in the house feel that they have the most right to the property, because they never left the property. So when the legal person who's on the title deed passes away and they stayed there and they stayed with that person, they've been there for years, they feel like I own the house, I have the right because I never left. And, like the attorney says, but without legal authority, they're just another heir. If maybe they are the children of the deceased. And like she said, an uncle actually now has to, get evicted. And because legally he needs to get evicted, through the magistrate's court. But before that, we always try and mediation first. Maybe they get paid out or allowed to rent officially. But when that fails and they've got an attorney and a buyer waiting, it comes to a legal blockage that needs to be handled quickly, or the deal collapses as well. Because you'll find that the heirs are trying to sell the property. The uncle who says, "This is my sister," does not want to move out. An eviction costs, it could cost anything from 20,000 rand. And you'll find that most of these people, or the heirs that are left behind, they don't even have the means to legally evict the uncle, whoever is staying in the house, because they saying, "I lived here with my sister and I can't just be moved out," or "You can't just sell the property."
So when do you have time to grieve when you're doing all of this fighting with each other?
So, usually there's not even time to grieve, because while there's a funeral, everybody's now starting to talk amongst themselves and who's going to be left behind, who's going to take the TV, who's taking the couches, And usually it's the people that have never worked a day in their life that make it difficult for even the rightful heirs to inherit their property, because inheritance is a legal right.
Oh gosh, it just is so triggering when you think about yourself as a parent, and then you think about your 3 or 4 kids now fighting over kohai. It's insane. So you have to put something legal in place. Duma, you're on the line. Hi.
Hi, how are you, Pabi? And how are you to your guest?
Good. Welcome. Go ahead.
Okay. My mother passed on 2010. Left the property. So she never left a will. And I'm the eldest, that we had struggles with my younger siblings. So, and they vandalized the house, because I don't stay there. I'm working at another place in Krugersdorp, and the house is in Vosloorus. So I've had a lot of problems, because my other siblings eventually passed on. And I'm left with my sister, but she's the worst, because she drinks and she vandalizes the place, and it's chaotic. When a person drinks, you can't control them. They are uncontrollable, and when I speak, it's like I'm trying to bully her or something.
Yeah.
So it's been a very tough journey for me, and the bill has also gone sky high through the municipality, because no one is taking responsibility.
Exactly. So now what's happening with the home? Who's in the home?
My sister's kids are there. My brother's kids are there.
Okay. And then have you done any of these processes that we've talked about going to the municipality and making sure that names are changed? You have?
Yes, I have, and that's another nightmare, because no one really helps you there. I've gone to the master's office. I never got to finalize my application. It was just backwards and forward. They would tell me, no, you'd rather go and get a lawyer. If you don't have financial muscle to pay for a lawyer, that's the problem. So I'm just stuck. Even now, I couldn't do anything. Because I went to the municipality, they said I must do an affidavit to try and arrange for the bill, which was so high.
Yeah.
Because apparently someone left the pipe without reporting it, that there's a leak. Then the bill went up to a lot of amount.
Okay, we have to let you go so that we can have some other callers on the line. Duma is going through it, guys.
Yeah.
Phatheka, Lelo, and the siblings' children are now living in there. So now you want extra issues legally, put your kids in the mix. And he's just not seeming to be able to get the right things to happen for him. What should he do, Phatheka?
I think Duma, he needs to get he needs to obtain legal advice, especially I think because what is also recommended is to have a mediator amongst them, amongst the siblings, so that we can be able to ascertain exactly what causes the sister's, anger in terms of demolishing stuff and whatever it is that the sister is doing. But I think it will be better. Maybe he can get my number so that we can discuss and see what's going to be the better way to have an assistance. Because you see, the problem is that if the estate is left not being wind up, then it becomes more complicated, because now the expansion of the distribution becomes worse because of the fact that if one dies, then if it leaves children, those children are supposed to benefit, and it just creates chaos. So it's really not a process that must be left hanging. It must be a process that must be finalized. And amongst them, we obviously just need to find out or to ascertain in terms of what exactly is the dispute.
I really feel for Duma, because,
go ahead, Lelo.
Like I said, as estate agents, we're the first people that gets to be called in this type of situations.
Yeah.
And I was going to say exactly what the lawyer said with, getting a mutual person who's a mediator, because sometimes, Pabi, this is so difficult because the communities get involved. You'll find that Duma was not staying there, and his siblings were staying there. And it could be, even with a letter of authority, it could be very hard, even if he can go to the master's office. What's good that Duma is doing is that he's not staying silent, and he's not getting emotional. He's first getting his facts together before he can get emotional. Because, you can't fight your rights if you don't know where the paperwork stands. Like I said, I deal with this. There's a current case that's going on now where the siblings discovered years later that a property was sold. And obviously now it comes back that was a fraudulent sale. And the person that bought the property and is now staying there, it happens that they bought the property fraudulently. And, and they didn't do anything wrong. The estate agent didn't do anything wrong. At the time, when paperwork came through with, the heirs that were there selling the property, they had a letter of authority. And even with letters of authority, the siblings can come back and say that's not legal. That is a fraudulent, because we've seen cases where fraudulent letters of authorities fly around, where people go to a master's office, they pay someone, and they do the letter of authority. Sometimes they actually ask questions like, do you have siblings? And people lie and say, I don't have siblings. Or sometimes when the heir are the children's children, and people say, but my brother never had children, and the brother that was staying in the property is the one that benefits. So, a mediator is needed in this
and
process.
all of that stuff starts to come out. And then now, who's the real child? I'm telling you, I've watched that show many times. We're going to Northcliffe now. Mighty is on the line. Hi, Mighty.
Hi, Pabi. How are you?
Great, thanks. Nice to talk to you. Go ahead.
Good, Pabi. Man, my view is that the whole legislative framework has got to be changed.
Patung.
Pabi, I used to think when you've got a will, it's simple to liquidate the estate. But since the death of our parents, I've seen miracles. Starting from the master's office, the master's office is a mess. They lose files, things. And now you've got one of you there who seems to have lost his or her mind, does not want to sign papers, and the property is dilapidating. One is hijacked. Had to get lawyers to get people out, and you just got stuck. Even if my view is, the will of the deceased must be executed. In terms of the wishes of the deceased.
Okay.
Not those who are living, who are obstructive.
I
Okay,
got you, Mighty. I got you, Mighty. They're obstructive people, and you've mentioned that they're people who have lost their mind. Who's going to tell me the instructions in the will? Is that going to be the final instruction that is given and carried out?
I think it should, but it's not enough. If I were a parent and, you've got grown children, what I would do besides the will is supposed to be legally enough. I would, and they're grown, they're over 18, they've got their own families, they've got their own lives. I would draw up a letter of authority while they're still alive, collect all their documents while I'm still alive, and make sure that they all signed and hand it over to an attorney. Because then, and then also prepare for eventualities, like should someone have children, what would happen to their children? How would the splits of the inheritance be handled?
Help me understand the necessity for the first part where you get everybody to sign along and get the letters of authority.
Because now that prevents what could happen in the future. Because say, for example, Mapule now, in that letter of, that I think maybe a resolution letter between the families.
Okay.
And Mapule never had children. But then Mapule has children later, and Mapule now passes away. And that letter was signed with the mom still alive, for example, and Mapule's children were not included. That could also cause a dispute.
But can't Mapule then give her designated part of the will to her children?
But say now they've drawn up that paperwork. That's
Yeah.
why I say it's important to have to prepare for all eventualities. Say the paperwork was drawn up and Mapule didn't have children at the time. But then Mapule passes away and she left children. So it's years later now.
So she didn't update her will?
No. The mom, the owner of the family home, did not put all of that eventualities. Like, say, what would happen if Pabi has children, Lelo has children, and they pass away? What would happen? So you find that your siblings say no. The children of Pabi can't have a share. It's so difficult evicting people. Attorneys play a big role, but the eviction part is a difficult part. Getting people out of the house. The law will not allow for people to just get evicted. It's a long legal battle.
I need a little bit more understanding about this because it sounds like you almost can never do enough. So just hang on for me, Lelo, and hang on for me, Phatheka. I'm going to try and get to the bottom of that. You can tell I'm not a lawyer, but I have a child. So this is important to me. And I'm somebody's child. And then Karabo will get to you after this, your 2:00 Power News. We are talking about inheritance and the property rights and fights that come between inheritors, the young children who then have their homes that they grew up in left to no one because their parents didn't ever write a will, or left in very strange circumstances because the will doesn't keep up. This is what I'm finding out from Lelo Waka Gatsheni, who is the founder and CEO of Lelo & Co Real Estate and Consulting, and Phatheka Premrose Maliphale, who is the director of PP Maliphale Inc. Attorneys. So just to clarify that last moment that we had, Lelo and Phatheka, about what happens once the will is written, and then what do you do then to ensure that even those who are not your next generation, maybe the next or next after generation, will still be taken care of?
Yes, I think to just complete there, I was saying that the will legally should be enough, but it depends who you are dealing with. Now, if you're dealing with people from the townships, they don't even care about the lawyers, Pabi, and it could even take forever before that situation can get to the lawyers. What the community listens to is counselors. And some of these counselors, when they get involved, they don't look at the legal aspects of it. I mean, I've seen too many cases where a counselor starts mediating like it's a street matter.
Yeah.
And now the rightful heirs are being overruled by local politics instead of law. And that's a big red flag. I've sat in a meeting, a council meeting, where I'm thinking, and you can't say anything. There's a whole lot of angry street members because they know Usbusiso, no John. And now Ukani just came in. She's living in the birds. Now the matter at hand gets dissolved because everybody in the community is more focused on Kanye thinks she's better. Nobody cares about that piece of paper. And that is why I said, if I'm a parent and I have children who are grown, besides the will, I have to bring my children together. And we must have some sort of paperwork, collect all their IDs, and put in on that resolution a situation where someone or one or two of my children will have children, what will happen then? So that even generations after and someone passed away, those pieces of paper can be passed down to say, but it was said. Because I'm telling you right now, Pabi, those families don't listen to attorneys. They listen to what Umama Utain. What did mom say? Mom wanted it like this. Mom wanted it like that. There's no attorney who's going to come into that. Unless it's people who are fundis, who are educated, they understand the law, they understand fairness. But usually that's not the case.
Okay, so that's not something I've necessarily heard before, and also then I wonder and worry about where people are getting advice for their last wills and testaments. So let's talk a little bit about that before we let you go. I beg your pardon, no. Let me speak to Garabo very quickly, whose question is probably more important than mine. Go ahead, Garabo.
Hey, Pabi, thank you for taking my call. Interesting topic.
Thank you.
Just my 2 cents worth, guys. This is real life. It's not embarrassing, but it's real life. It's what people go through. And I think I watched 1 or 2 episodes and I checked out because it was too depressing to continue to watch, because it's, oh my God, it's just so such a depressing moment. But I think for me, and my friends, we've become more deliberate to say we're not going to have a gugitila. You know, we need to empower our kids to say, hey, mom drops tomorrow. Here's a key. Go to that box. You open. You do this. You do that. There's instructions. There's an instruction manual. There's no malume otoring yeruna. Because you're confused, you're grieving, you don't know what to do. People are coming in with all sorts of rules and regulations, and you don't know what to listen to, and then and all sorts of things. Let's just empower our kids. I mean, my mom did that, thank God. I mean, I didn't have to do any of that. She just told me, hey, when I die, I want to rest in this place. And the title deed was changed, I think I was 1920.
Oh, wow. So you were young and informed.
I was young. But I mean, it was when we had written our matric and we had IDs. And she was like, hey, you've got your ID. Here's your house. I'm transferred. I don't want any issues. I don't want to die and you having to fight all these battles. This is yours. This is where I want to rest. And it was seamless, you know. But I think we need to do that for our children. We utilize too late. But how do we do it better going forward as the new moms to our children and for our children?
Beautiful question, Garabo. And we have so little time left. We've actually gone over time. I think we must have another conversation about this, truly, because we need to now answer Garabo's question. So now we're in the middle and we're looking after our parents. There's still more questions around that. And then what can we do to make sure that our children are left in a better place? If anyone has immediate questions to ask you now, Lelo, Waka, Gatsheni, you tell us how we can find you.
You can find me on 010-300-0237.
And yourself, Phatheka?
Yes, you can find us on 011-568-0492 and also at PPM Inc. On all the social platforms. You can catch us there.
Brilliant. Thank you both very much for bringing this very important information to the fore when fighting and getting into inheritance issues, especially with property. These are the ladies to listen to. Thanks so much for giving us more of your time than we even asked for.
Thank you very much for having me.
What a pleasure. Lelo Waka Gatsheni, founder and CEO of Lelo & Co. Real Estate and Consulting, and Phatheka, Premrose Maliphale, who is the director at PP Maliphale Inc. Attorneys.